When bad guys are on the run, you better believe the boys in blue are hot on their heels.
This chase has been going on for half an hour now.
But what if the getaway vehicle is a tank? Just like being in a 5-star GTA 5 police chase, Sean Nelson stole an army tank and went on a rampage.
34-year-old Sean Nelson had been a tank crewman in the Army, but police had no idea who was at the controls until it was over.
What can a police car even do against a tank? The only thing that stops tanks are other tanks. Oh, and concrete dividers apparently.
The officers finally have an opportunity to stop him.
Everyone knows that when your ride runs out of options, it's time to hit the ground running. Like these two criminals on the run and wanted for armed robbery, bailing their getaway car in a dead end. The only way was up. Scaling the roof, she quickly found herself faced with a drop on one side and a big gap on the other. Barely hesitating, she jumped from one building to the next, channeling her inner Spider-Man to make the daring escape. I'd love to say that she got away, but all those flashy moves ended up being for nothing. And while her escape might have been caught on camera, some criminals like to film it themselves. Ever wonder why they call everyone on Instagram a follower? Wilfredo Garcia Jr. found out when he filmed his own police chase, recording his reaction while Florida police pursued him on his ATV. In probably one of the slowest police chases of all time, Wilfredo barely tipped the odometer above 30 miles an hour. And while this guy absolutely loved the attention he got from the law, nothing compares to these two guys. After stealing a convertible, two suspected robbers led police on an hour-long car chase through downtown LA. It wasn't long before the pair began taking advantage of the police's low-effort chase skills. In true Hollywood fashion, the two started performing donuts in the middle of an intersection, waving at onlookers and even provoking the police into coming after them. They call it a police chase, but the police seem too slow or lazy. In fact, the closest anyone came to stopping the duo was when the TMZ tour bus tried to cut them off. In the end, their speed and skillful driving proved too much for the LAPD. The chase was temporarily called off while the pair enjoyed a hero's welcome at their friend's house. And while it's easy to get away when you have unlimited horsepower under the hood, what happens if you only have one? When police started getting reports of a man in full cowboy gear riding a horse down a freeway in downtown Chicago, they didn't know whether to be concerned or dress up as Indians.
This is happening. A man on a horse is riding with cars and
regardless of how weird it was to see a cowboy side by side with a Tesla, police knew something had to be done. For starters, the much slower horse was a traffic hazard on the fast-moving expressway. And secondly, maybe he just needed the horse to use the carpool lane. Before long, the lone rider had a tail of cop cars, despite galloping up to the speeds of 15 miles per hour. Eventually, the poor animal ran out of steam, and the rider, also known as the Dreadhead Cowboy, surrendered to the police without incident. What's the best getaway vehicle you can think of? A Bugatti? Lamborghini? Well, what about one that the police are too terrified to follow?
Are you serious right now, bro?
This criminal had the genius idea of stealing the world's most unfollowable ride, a fully loaded lumber truck. At first, the truck-stealing criminal was a local hero, even getting high fives from enthusiastic onlookers. But things became heated when the sparks of an exposed wheel rim caused the lumber to ignite, engulfing the rear of the truck in flames.
Hey, bro, watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
With toxic smoke and a flaming cargo that frequently spilled onto the road, police had to wait for their moment. Thankfully, they got their chance, and a lucky shot from an officer would be the undoing of this car chase from hell.
No, I think he's firing.
I'm just glad justice was served, but what happens when you're an unwilling participant in a high-speed car chase? When police in New York saw a limousine illegally using a shoulder to pass a row of cars, they activated their lights and sirens to pull the driver over. Instead of pulling to the curb, the limo sped off, leading police on a chase that reached the speeds of up to 150 miles per hour at times. Eventually, his erratic driving was too much for his transmission, blowing his drivetrain to bits. Undeterred, the limo driver popped his ride into reverse,
But what the hell, boy?
continuing the chase while facing the wrong direction. Driving 40 miles an hour backwards is a skill that very few people possess, and he definitely wasn't one of them, reversing into a tree and ending the chase on the spot. The most terrifying part of the story? There was a traumatized passenger in the back who had no idea what was happening. Speaking of joyrides in unusual vehicles, police gave chase when Joshua Phillips stole an armored personnel carrier from a military facility.
Enemy spotted.
The former Army lieutenant stole the mini tank from Fort Pickett and led officers on a 65-mile chase across Virginia. Traditional methods won't work on a vehicle that's literally designed to withstand gunfire and explosions, so police had to try and keep the public safe instead. After reaching the speeds of up to 40 miles an hour on the suburban streets, Joshua eventually pulled the APC over and surrendered to the police, claiming insanity as the reason for his joyride.
Voices! Angry fish!
Joshua might have been clinically crazy, but this next chase is plain nuts. This police chase started out like any other. High speeds, dangerous driving, and several close calls. But what happens when your escape plans go off track? After taking police on a wild tour around Charlotte, William Mason quickly found himself in a dead end, blocked by a slow-moving goods train. Desperate to escape the law, William abandoned his car and ran alongside the train, carefully choosing his moment before jumping aboard. Even though the train was gradually slowing to a stop, William eventually jumped off, disappearing into a wooded area and out of the view of the police. But William isn't the only pro leaving his pursuers in the dust. When William Scott Taft was pulled over for a routine red light infringement, he knew it wasn't going to end well. He had an expired license, no insurance,
As for my license and insurance, of course I don't have them.
and a car full of illegal goodies that the police were definitely going to be interested in.
I've got pistols, I've got drugs.
So rather than delay the inevitable, he sped off, leading the police on a car chase across Oklahoma County. But the police weren't dealing with your average dumb criminal. No. William was talented behind the wheel, effortlessly avoiding spike strips and police pursuits. When he turned onto the freeway and started hitting speeds of 120 miles per hour, police decided they needed to use a classic tactic to end the chase: the pit maneuver. The only problem was William knew how to recover after spinning out. Not once,
There was a. Oh my goodness. That's unbelievable.
not twice,
I have never seen anything like this.
but 3 times. Nothing seemed to be able to stop him, even though William's car finally failed him. Sometimes the best getaway car is the one chasing you. In a bizarre case of Uno reverse, one fugitive on the run turned the tables on his tail by stealing the police cruiser that was chasing him.
Oh, no.
Juan Jose Galvez pulled off the daring heist in a brazen moment of confusion, leaving the embarrassed troopers scratching their heads and needing a ride. In a scene straight out of GTA 5, police cars chased a police car through the Californian desert, whipping up dust and debris as the cars repeatedly went off-road. The uneven terrain eventually proved too much for the beat-up cruiser, with the fleeing criminal running the cop car into a ditch before surrendering. Maybe he would have been a little bit more successful if he had gotten help from an unsuspecting bystander, like this guy. What do you do when your getaway car runs out of gas? Get out and push, of course. Mid-police chase, this guy forgot to check the gauge and ended up running empty in the middle of the freeway. Rather than abandoning his ride, he tries pushing it up the off-ramp. Always looking to help someone in need, a construction worker jumps in to help the struggling felon, completely unaware that he was in the middle of being chased. After a few minutes of pushing uphill, the shirtless criminal decides he's had enough, running away and making a beeline for the 7-Eleven instead. Speaking of walking away from the scene of the crime, when a crazy motorist led police on a chase through Californian traffic, people braced for the worst. Despite reaching insane speeds and spending a long time on the wrong side of the road, the driver somehow maintained control. Out of fear, police eventually called the chase off. The news chopper didn't give up though, and only moments later, the suspect was walking the streets calmly, like nothing had even happened. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we found the real-life Trevor Phillips.
What's up, homie? Huh? Oh.